Good afternoon or good morning to all of you on this webinar. My name is Frances Marshman. I am one of several researchers on the What Works in Youth HIV team. I also edit all the website content and will be facilitating today's 90-minute webinar entitled Supporting LGBTQ College and University Students of Color. Hold on a second as we advance the slides. Before we begin with the content, I do have to run some technical details by you. So as you know from being on hold earlier, all participants are in listen-only mode throughout the webinar. If you have any technical difficulties during today's webinar, send a chat, or also if you have a question. So you'll see on your screen the circled in red chat button. Click on this button or click on the button in the upper right-hand corner to get you to the button on the lower right-hand corner. Type in your message, and please be sure to send it to all panelists. If this is a little overwhelming, you'll see that our email address is on this slide, and you can email us directly and we'll help you. Today's session is being recorded and will be available for future viewing on our website, www.yh.org. So anytime during this presentation, please type in comments or questions, but we won't respond to them until the end of the presentation. So here are some other tips for being able to hear today's webinar. The call-in number is always an option if you're having problems hearing us. Also, please know that you can adjust your screen by using the Zoom view function that's shown on this next slide. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our interest in getting your feedback. So following this webinar, a new window in your browser will automatically open to an evaluation. We would really appreciate you taking a couple minutes to fill it out, because it will make our future webinars even better. That's it for the technical stuff. So as I said earlier, my name is Frances Marshman, and I'm a member of the What Works in Youth HIV project team. I and fellow team members welcome you to this webinar. I'm pleased that you're willing to spend and choosing to spend the next hour and a half with us. Before we get to our esteemed speakers, I wanted to give you a little background on this webinar. You'll see on your screen that the What Works in Youth HIV project, which consists of both a website and technical assistance, is one of many projects run by JSI, an international public health consulting company that address public health. Prevention of health problems and access to health care are primary issues many of our projects tackle. What Works in Youth HIV runs through a cooperative agreement awarded by the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Adolescent Health, with funding from HHS's Secretary Minority AIDS Initiative Fund. The website, and here you can see the landing page, we have developed over the last about 2 years, just about 2 years, has hundreds of curated resources and facts and figures on it. All are related to the issues surrounding HIV in youth. We use the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's definition of youth. So CDC defines youth as ages 13 through 24. Here's the goal of our project. You can read it on the screen. And we've designed this website to help youth-serving professionals address HIV with youth in a range of settings. What Works in Youth HIV has 3 purposes. You can read these on the screen as well. I'd just like to add that all 3 purposes, support, promote, and connect, are intended to lead to the overall purpose of our website, an HIV-free generation and youth with good health and well-being. So I'm going to read this slide. Young people under 26 years of age, born after June 5th, 1981, have never known a world without HIV. This fact from the CDC motivates us to keep the information on what works in youth HIV up to date and relevant. As do the facts on the following slides, also from CDC. I'm going to read them aloud quickly. 1 in 4 HIV infections in the U.S. occur in individuals between the ages of 13 and 24. About 4 in 5 of these infections occur in males. The rate of HIV diagnoses in youth 13 to 24 was highest, 81% in the 20 to 24 age group. And then almost half of youth, as in 44%, ages 18 to 24, living with HIV in the U.S. do not know they are infected. We have many resources for professionals working with youth ages 13 to 18 on our website, and have now shifted our attention to gathering resources and information that will be helpful to professionals and providers who work with youth between the ages of 18 and 24. As you know, many youth between these ages attend college and university, and these settings can be challenging for all sorts of reasons. Academic rigor, first time away from home, to name a few, but in our research we've become particularly concerned about students of color who don't feel fully included on predominantly white institution campuses. These students can feel further alienated if they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer students of color. Similarly, on historically black college and university campuses, those students who are LGBTQ can feel isolated. This slide, according to a 2012 Kaiser Family Foundation survey, says that 84% of youth aged 15 to 24 said that there's stigma around HIV in the U.S. As you well know, youth who feel connected and supported are more likely to assert themselves, ask questions, get involved, and to thrive. Ultimately, our project's goal is to get youth connected to information about HIV information in order to prevent them from getting it, and if they do, to connect them to care and to keep them in care. We're currently organizing resources that will help professionals and providers reach college and university students in order to give them this HIV-related information, as well as to support them in their potential isolation. In researching what's out there, we learned that a University of Michigan survey from 2015 found that LGBT students and students of color were twice as likely to be victims of sexual violence as their peers were. We also learned that 21% of historically black colleges and universities, which we'll be referring to as HBCUs from now on, in the United States, 20% are estimated to have LGBT organizations on campus. And in a 2010 study from the American Student Health Association, College Health Association, found that out of all college students eligible to utilize campus health services, only 49% in private institutions and only 43% in public institutions did so. While researching, we've also been fortunate in meeting individuals who are actively trying to meet the needs of LGBTQ students of color. They've helped us shape our thinking about these layered issues and have graciously agreed to present their respective projects, successes, and challenges on this webinar today. We are grateful for their time and commitment to their work. We do want to hear from you, so please, a reminder again to chat questions and comments throughout the presentations. We'll get to them at the end. By now, you've probably had a chance to read the objectives for today's webinar on the screen. So here are today's presenters. Leslie Hall currently works at the Human Rights Campaign and will present first. Shireen Lead works at the University on Campaign 930 at the University District of Columbia, and with her team will present next. And Kelly Harrison directs the LGBT Resource Center at the University of Southern California and will present last. Leslie Hall has devoted his life's work to defending, advocating, and supporting underrepresented, underprivileged, and marginalized people through higher education, nonprofit, and community-based organizations. He attended Bowie State University, earning a bachelor's degree in sociology. While at Bowie State, Leslie was appointed by the then Governor Martin O'Malley to serve on the University System of Maryland Board of Regents. Fusing the plight of his community with his desire to make a difference, he went on to attend Howard University School of Social Work, earning a Master of Social Work in 2014. Leslie works currently at the Human Rights Campaign, the largest civil rights organization advocating for the rights of the LGBTQ community, as a senior manager of the Historically Black Colleges and Universities Project. Leslie works with university presidents and senior level administrators in crafting inclusive policies that support and empower LGBTQ students and staff. He specializes in presenting a wide variety of LGBTQ-related topics while maintaining a safe, comfortable, and respectful atmosphere. Leslie, I'm grateful for you presenting today, and we're passing the presenter ball to you now.
Thank you so much, Frances, for that wonderful introduction. And so we will hop right into the presentation. Just a little bit more about me. Frances shared just a few seconds ago a brief part of my work. But to go deeper, we work with HBCU presidents on creating policies that promote inclusion amongst their LGBTQ population on campus. Many HBCUs have non-discrimination policies. However, they all do not include sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And so we work with presidents to make that happen. We also facilitate trainings and workshops on campus. We facilitate student leadership institutes, faculty institutes, and we also do brown bags with campus-based administrators. And then the last piece is that I manage the annual HBCU Leadership Summit that happens every fall, and that is when we bring close to 30 LGBTQ HBCU students to Washington, D.C. for 4 or 5 days of leadership development training, social and emotional growth, and identity development so that they are able to go back to their campuses and make positive changes. All right, here is a beautiful picture of our last cohort from 2016, and it just shares the mission of the project, and that is the HBCU program empowers LGBTQ HBCU students to be change agents on their campus and to lead resourcefully through the intersections of race, religion, gender identity, class, and sexual orientation. So some of the challenges that I faced as I have been doing this work at HBCUs as it relates to HIV, AIDS prevention, and health equity is the lack of LGBTQ competent healthcare professionals on campus. Many of the healthcare professionals that work in the wellness centers and health centers on campus, number one, many of them are not led by medical doctors. Many of them are led by nurse practitioners, which is just fine. However, they are not up to date with the latest in LGBTQ health. And so you would get a student that identifies as LGBTQ to go to the wellness center, and they will be unable to fully assist them and engage them in healthcare because they are not familiar with some of the latest things that are out there. And we'll get a little bit into that in the next few slides. The next is the lack of meaningful community-based partnerships that would establish service linkages. So historically Black colleges, many of them are small and they cannot afford a lot of the services provided at many of the larger HBCUs. And so community-based partnerships are crucial in being able to deliver necessary services, especially to LGBTQ student populations. And so what we found is that many of those campuses do not have those really important linkages in the community to be able to refer students to these particular organizations. The next is a lack of health professionals who are persons of color. You'd be surprised that many of the wellness center and health center staff are not folks of color, and that can present a barrier when students are going to the health center. And the last piece on this is most HIV prevention messages start and stop at condom usage, which we have found isn't an effective message on campuses, where the only thing that their health center or their student life activities departments, the only thing that they are saying as it relates to HIV prevention is use condoms and promoting abstinence. All right, so what we found to work very well. So we have hosted more professional development opportunities to train healthcare professionals in service delivery and LGBTQ competency. And essentially what that is that we have held, as of today, 2 health and wellness briefings where we invite health and wellness professionals and also student affairs professionals to learn about the latest in LGBTQ health so that they would be able to better serve their populations on campus. Another thing that works is when campuses host events and programs to share information about the many tools available to students about HIV prevention. And so just an example is maybe a campus might have a basketball tournament. In order for the student to gain entry into this basketball tournament, they have to maybe get a pamphlet from each particular table at a health fair, or they have to engage in a 30-minute presentation before entering the event. And so that is almost how you have to incentivize the students into getting this crucial information. And the last thing that we have found that works, that we support, are peer-led conversation groups about sensitive topics. Many campuses are adopting this peer educator model to be able to share health and wellness information, and for students to be able to talk with other students about this type of work and information seems to work very well on many of the campuses that are engaged in this model. And some of the recommendations that we find to be helpful, to take time to provide space to listen and learn from LGBTQ students of color. Folks oftentimes are not really up to date with what that population on campus need. And if you maybe just hold a group meeting or an afternoon mixer or what have you, and you have food and maybe some games, and invite those students to come just chat with you, you will learn volumes. As we learned earlier in Francis's beginning introduction, we learned that 20% of the HBCU campuses have LGBTQ clubs. That's not many. So there are 106 recognized HBCUs, and only close to a little under 30 of them have LGBTQ clubs. So we have a lot of work to do in that regard. However, for those campuses that do have those clubs, then it is important that we connect with those club members to see exactly what's happening. And for those campuses that do not have clubs, you can work with academic departments on campus to meet up with students. A lot of students have affinity groups within academic departments that you can chat with as well. Again, train peer educators. We really, really do endorse that model of peer educators. And then stay up to date with the latest of biomedical interventions for HIV, AIDS, and STI, STD preventions. As we shared in the last slide, PrEP is a new biomedical intervention that we are truly encouraging all HBCU staff to bring awareness on their campuses, and also to create those community-based service linkages, so that even if you, and most HBCUs cannot prescribe PrEP, but you can create a relationship or partnership with the local health department or a local community-based organization, so that you can refer students to that organization so they can learn more about PrEP and also be prescribed PrEP. This is a lot of the work that we do. We do a variety of different things within the program, but this is just one of part of our health and wellness initiative. We are really trying to encourage and train health and wellness professionals so that they can be up to date and competent in LGBTQ health. All right, and thank you. That is my portion of it. There's my email in case anyone would like to send me an email to learn more about what we do, to see if you can participate in one of our trainings, or to have me come out to your particular school or organization to do a training. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to serve as a panelist on this webinar, and look forward to learning more from the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. That's so great. And I see that you've passed the ball to our next speaker, Shireen Lead. I'm imagining people, it's wonderful to see people are still joining the webinar this afternoon, this morning for some of you, supporting LGBTQ college and university students of color. So welcome to those of you who are joining late, and please notice the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner or the top right-hand corner, and everybody's in listen-only mode, but questions and comments are welcome. So again, thank you, Leslie. I'm now pleased to introduce Shireen Lead, who is the project coordinator for a minority serving institution community-based organization grant, and which funds the activities of Campaign 930. She serves as the advisor to Campaign 930 and coordinates the administrative functions of the grant and all activities relating to scheduling events and activities, coordinating established partnerships, negotiating with internal and external entities for space and accommodations for all events, and also ensuring that health educators and student peer educators are fully trained on HIV/AIDS, substance abuse prevention, and other important topics while they assume their roles and responsibilities within Campaign 930. Shireen, welcome. Thank you so much for presenting, and I'm going to let you introduce your colleagues as your presentation goes along for the next few minutes.
So much for having us today. Again, my name is Shireen Lead, and I am the project coordinator and advisor for Campaign 930. And we have a robust student-led peer education program at the University of the District of Columbia called Campaign 930. And it is a program funded by SAMHSA, which is a minority serving institution grant, also community-based organization initiative. And the purpose of our program is to provide an integrative and comprehensive approach to address the risks and protective factors of substance abuse and HIV/AIDS through meaningful collaborations between program and external partners. The mission of our program also is to provide cultural, appropriate health education and trainings to ensure that every UDC student and local community member receives access to high-quality, engaging, and innovative substance abuse and HIV testing, treatment, information, tools, and materials.
Hi, Shireen. Excuse the interruption. It's Frances. Your slides are not advancing. Could we help you at all? Oh, there we go. Okay. Thanks.
I apologize for that.
No, great.
Campaign 930, who, what, and why. So Campaign 930 is, as I informed already, is a student peer-led education program that focuses on educating UDC and the extended community about the risks and protective factors associated with HIV and substance abuse. What we are certified trained student peer educators, the acronym is SPE. We are role models on campus, so we are the leads, the heads of a lot of the clubs and organizations here on campus, our student government association. We partner with a variety of departments and organizations, so we are the premier program on campus. We are also identified as LGBTQ allies. We provide in-class presentations and interventions. We do weekly information tabling on a variety of topics on HIV, substance abuse, hepatitis C, tobacco cessation. We also administer and or contract with our community-based organizations HIV testing, and we also do counseling referrals. We also do commemoration events such as World AIDS Day, Women and Girls HIV awareness. We do male and female condom distributions. We do a lot of those in the bathrooms around the campus. Also in common areas, areas that we know students are hanging out at, we will make sure that we have condoms for their use. And then we also do public service announcements. So why did we do this work? Well, when we first started this organization, the name came from the fact that every 9 minutes and 30 seconds someone had contracted HIV. One of the things that we wanted to talk about is that we are located in D.C., and D.C. is one of the highest areas for HIV infections, newer infections. 2.7% of people in the district are living with HIV. African Americans, especially women, are mostly affected by the epidemic, and then UDC is the only public university in the district serving that minority community. Majority of UDC students also come from the most affected wards, which are 5, 7, and 8. So how we affect or how we are able to support LGBT initiatives is through our cultural competency, safe space trainings for students, staff, and faculty. It increases awareness of challenges and unique but often unmet needs that LGBT individuals of color often face. It provides information on local and external resources that support LGBTQ individuals. Trainees gain a deeper understanding and awareness of personal biases, stereotypes, and assumptions of people who identify as LGBTQ. And often it is the first step for members of the community, the campus community, who may not have had this training in the past. It gives them a chance to become an ally to students and colleagues who identify as LGBTQ. Other works that we do, we do create identifiable safe space locations on campus. What we would like to first define what that is. A safe space or a zone is a place or an environment in which a person or a category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination or criticism, harassment, or any other emotional or physical harm. So with a safe space, it creates a community network between campus staff, faculty, and students who all support each other of all sexual orientations, genders, and expressions on campus. And it also provides a place where all students and staff have a comfortable and familiar space where they can fully self-express without the fear of being made to feel uncomfortable, unwelcomed, or challenged for being their authentic self. And some of the events that we do, I mentioned one before, that we do, which encourages diversity and inclusion, is our World AIDS Day, our Women and Girls HIV Awareness Day. Even with that day, we make sure that we include transgender women to participate in those events. We do National Transgender HIV Awareness Days, and we also collaborate with community-based organizations to do National Gay Men and HIV Awareness Days. Some of the things that we are working on right now, we have not totally completed yet, but we're still in the works of completing, is our LGBTQ task force and committee. We are right now we have formed a committee, and we are in the process of developing and supporting recommendations that meet the needs of the LGBTQ stakeholders. And we are collaborating with external agencies and nonprofits, such as Human Rights Campaign, with like Leslie Hall, National Black Justice Coalition, Black Gifted and Whole, and the D.C. Government LGBT Liaison Office. And some of the things that I'm currently working on with the administrators at our school is making sure that we have access to or have our students have access to gender-neutral facilities and locker rooms. We know that there's a need for our transgender students. They must have access to these facilities regardless of whether it is gender neutral or not, but we're also advocating for all single occupancy spaces can be as well be neutral spaces for use. We are hoping to launch our LGBTQ Resource Center in the spring of 2018, and we would make that one of our safe space headquarters. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to one of my student peer educators. He is the president of Campaign 930. His name is Mr. Patrick Iwango.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Patrick Iwango, the president of Campaign 930. The challenges and barriers to supporting LGBTQ students of color, especially in HBCU campuses, is enormous. And one of the main factors of those is stigma. You see that people who self-identify as being part of LGBTQ often face stigma, discrimination, social rejection, and exclusion that prevent them from fully participating in society, including accessing health care, education, employment, and housing, which we know that is a fact that people of color always face in their community, and not talk of when they are in the minority in that particular environment. These factors especially affect the health and well-being of transgender people, placing them at an increased risk for HIV. And according to CDC report, transgender people have one of the highest prevalence of HIV infection. That's transgender people of color. And another aspect, again, is lack of access to proper health care. Insensitivity to transgender issue by healthcare providers can be a barrier for transgender people diagnosed with HIV and seeking quality treatment and care services. Few healthcare providers receive proper training or are knowledgeable about transgender health issues and their unique needs. This can lead to limited healthcare access and negative healthcare encounters. You'll find out most of the times when the transgender people go to hospitals or even the clinics, they can't even be able to get quality access to health care because someone who is attending to them is kind of being stigmatizing them on who they are, not even trying to find out what's actually wrong with them. But that is the kind of institution that is changing here at UDC as our health center here, which is a safe space. We will have a trans person among the staff at the health center, which makes it more accessible to the trans community and the LGBT community of the campus to be able to access health services from the school health services. And again, we have communication barrier and funding. That's lack of among African gay men and bisexual who have HIV. The lower percentage know their HIV status compared to HIV positive gay and bisexual men of some other races or ethnics. Based on that, on data from 22 U.S. cities, people who don't know they have HIV cannot take advantage of HIV care and treatment and may unknowingly pass HIV to others. And this brings about, again, stigma. When people of color, most of them are kind of afraid to go check if they have HIV, because when you have HIV and you're gay, you're kind of in a way being ostracized from your community. So this kind of a thing that is making them not to come out, go out and take the test or know if they're positive. And this is kind of something that needs to be addressed in the community. And then other factor, again, is the socio-economic factor. Limited access to quality health care, lower income and educational levels, and higher rates of unemployment and incarceration may place some African-American gay and bisexual men at higher risk for HIV than men of some other races and ethnics. And according to CDC, again, this particular aspect is been proven that most of the men, people from the minority, the black, African gay men, most of them are unemployed, and most of them lose their job when they find the employer find out, oh, they are transgender or gay, so they lose their job. And going back on the street, they are now kind of more prone to contract HIV, either trying to be MSM or doing something else to have access to money, and then the infection rate kind of skyrockets from that aspect. From this place, I think I'll hand over to Lisa Smith to go with the next segment of the presentation.
Hi, my name is Lisa Smith, and I'm serving as the Vice President for Campaign 930, and I will be introducing what works. Right now on the campus of UDC, what works for us and what we've been in motion and doing the orientation and move-in. In the beginning of the fall and spring semesters, we conduct workshops, we table, we recruit for new student members during orientation. This is a major time to be visible and to bring awareness to new students about safe spaces on campus, prevention, and it's a great time to arrange HIV and hepatitis C testing opportunities. We also engage in campus promo videos. We are involved in campus-wide pictures and videos that reveal school spirit and can feature your club or organizations as a special group involved in HIV, substance abuse, hepatitis C prevention. Make clear on what issues we stand with and what we stand against. We engage in student groups. We collaborate and align ourselves with other student departments, clubs, and organizations such as the Student Government Association, fraternities and sororities, basketball or football teams, and we bring a united front to social or health issues that affect our community. As far as social media, we use social media to help bring attention and awareness to the masses that otherwise may not have access to health information specific to their needs. We also use social media to broadcast Campaign 930's Couch Talk series, in which SPE select a topic related to HIV, substance abuse, stigma, or other related topics, and we have a discussion live for others to view. Now, in asking and using proper names and pronouns, we are very mindful and respectful of people who do not identify with a specific gender or a transgender regarding their preferred names or pronouns, meaning when we are addressing people, we do not just assume that they are any specific gender. We use terms as, what do you identify yourself as? We create a welcoming and comfortable atmosphere to enhance the culture. Addressing the stigma and HIV and mental health, the stigma and discrimination are often barriers to HIV prevention and treatment, so we conduct workshops and focus groups that brings discussion around those specific topics. And for continuous culture competency and trainings, we provide safe space training, which is given to us by Campus Pride. We also, like Ms. Lee mentioned before, we do collaborations with the National Black Justice Coalition, who also provides training to us as well. And then with the networking and partnering with the local community-based organizations and agencies, we do things with the MPD and MedStar. It's called Beat the Streets, where we go out into the community and we do table and community. We provide education with people who we say look like us, because UDC is a community-based campus where we don't necessarily live on campus, we commute. And just like yesterday in one of our Beat the Streets activities, one of our SPEs who's currently working with us, he's very new, he said that we were out in his old neighborhood. So we are actually speaking to students or relative students here when we do our community-based programs. We do high school outreach, and we do other networking and community outreaches as well.
So thank you all for having us. We're very happy and pleased to be able to share a little bit about Campaign 930 and the work that we do. Our student peer educators are our shining stars on our campus, and we thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you today. And I'll be passing the ball to Kelby
Harrison. Thank you so much, Serene, Patrick, and Lisa. Given us a lot to think about. Everybody on listening is welcome to chat questions or comments. And now I'm pleased to introduce Kelby Harrison, who has served as the Director of University of Southern California's LGBT Resource Center since 2014. After completing her PhD in ethics, ethics, gender, and sexuality from Northwestern University in 2010, Kelby was a postdoctoral fellow in social ethics at Union Theological Seminary, where she taught sexual ethics, philosophy of religion, and LGBT social ethics. She has worked as a hospital chaplain at UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center and is also on staff at USC's Office of Religious Life as the Director of Spirituality and Sexuality. Finally, Kelby is the author of Sexual Deceit, The Ethics of Passing. Thank you, Kelby, so much for being able to present today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Leslie, and the UDC 930 team for your presentation. So I want to talk about what we're doing here at USC, at the University of Southern California, to increase our inclusion for our queer and trans students of color, and how that's impacting access to our Student Health Center. The name of it is the Engelman Student Health Center, and I may shorten that to Engelman because that's how they train us to talk about it here. Our center was founded in 2006 in order to increase the inclusion of our LGBT students, to improve overall well-being and retention rates. We have three major goals of inclusion or community building, advocacy for individual students and the community as a whole, and then also education for the campus in total. So it's about an 80,000 person campus. It's a large job, and we have 2 professional staff, but this is our first year with 2. We've been 1-person staff for most of those years, so for the first 10 years that we've been around. I want to start by talking about our center and what we've done to try to promote inclusion of students of color. Particularly this year, we have been doing a series of focus groups for our QTPOC population, queer and trans people of color. And part of that outreach was to find out additional ways that we could serve the community and to get some direct feedback on how we are doing in supporting that community. A couple of things to say about our center, just so you can kind of envision it. We're in a hallway that we share with our student judicial office, so where students go to get in trouble. But we're split up, so on one side of the hall we have our student lounge, which is a small space, about 300 square feet, but it has free snacks, free printing, and free coffee at all times between 10 and 8 p.m. And then all trusted students have access to a key to that space whenever the building is open, which includes our student leaders and our student staff. And then across the hall, so you can get the vision in your head, we have our administrative offices and our student worker room, which means there's just a space in between the 2 spaces. So, and our lounge space is brand new this academic year, so it's really been taking off this year. So we wanted to know how to improve that and how to improve our usage of the space. So out of these focus groups, we got some helpful information. And the first one of that is that the students in the lounge needed more staff interaction. We have 2 full-time staff members. We are both white identified, and we employ about 20 student workers, about 60% of which are students of color, 1 international student, and then the breakdown between grad and undergrad is about 40% grad, 60% undergrad. So it's a lot of students, and they are the face of the center during most academic days. They are the most consistent presence. Professional staff are around the campus in meetings and trainings. So it's really key that they have a presence in the center and build relationships. So the #1 thing we got was that the students needed more staff interaction with the student staff and with the professional staff. They just needed to see our faces in the lounge and start to build just rapport. The second request was space. This becomes complicated for us because we only have that 300 square feet, but our QTPOC community really communicated they need a space to meet within our space. So we began to think about how to make that a reality for the students. Our students want targeted programming. They made that clear. We have programming that is targeted at grad students and international students. USC is somewhat unique with its international student population. We flip-flop each year, or almost each year, with NYU for the largest number of international students. And because of that, we have a significant number of LGBT identified international students or LGBT students that are not identified. internationally. We're something of a magnet for these students. We're Los Angeles, we're liberal, we have great master's programs. So China, Korea, and India, we have a significant number of students that we've been trying to engage in our programming and to figure out how to meet their needs. And so the students really said, we feel like the international students are getting too much attention, essentially the feedback that we got. We feel that they are dominating spaces that also need to be available for domestic students of color, and that conversation needs to be had separately. And then they made it clear again that having just white professional staff creates something of a barrier. And that one way to perhaps overcome this was to designate some of our student staff, or particularly a student staff member, to advocate program for and build community around students of color and concerns for students of color and the community. So we listened and started to think, okay, so what are we going to do? We're still in the process of having this conversation. So some changes that we're quick to make was that we are closing the center to QTPOC students only. We're going to pick an evening a week, and the center will be closed down to the general student population. It'll likely be after standard business hours, and during that time, there'll be promotions of different activities, just study spaces, food, that kind of thing. We already gave a grad assistant the name of being in charge of developing community and outreach and increasing the inclusivity of the LGBT Resource Center to students of color. And then we began to talk about how to bring in cultural diversity within our educational attempts with our community. So we educate the community broadly, all 80,000 members, on safe zone issues, much like the 930 group discussed in the last presentation. But we've also been spending quite a bit of time in the last couple of years really wanting to educate our own community about the history of the LGBT movement and current global and local issues that are of concern. So we started to think about how we could make certain cultural diversity months much more present in the LGBT Resource Center, and to really celebrate those months within LGBT history, and then to work with our other ethnic-specific centers to bring out LGBT history and events in those separate spaces. So we have here at USC 3 cultural centers that are ethnic-specific that we work closely with, which are unfortunately a couple floors away from us. So we're advocating for some physical proximity. That's a hope for us in terms of a long-term goal is to have all 4 cultural centers in the same space so that students don't need to choose between the centers. There can be greater fluidity of just popping in and out of the different centers at different times. And then it was very clear that we needed to immediately start in staff and student trainings that just framed the space of multiculturalism and inclusivity from the very first day that we get together. So we train our student staff every August, we train them again every January, and we are planning to begin that training immediately with conversations about diversity and inclusion and multiculturalism as the first conversation out of the gate. We also, when we work with LGBT students across the campus and queer students across the campus, that we're going to make this a part of the trainings in all of those settings. So that is a quick implemented change. So we work closely with our Engelman Student Health Center, and I wanted to discuss with you all some of the advocacy work we've been doing with them. I'm hoping on your screen you can see this STD awareness flyer that we have. As a bit of a background, I know that at many campuses, the Student Health Center and the LGBT Center are not close colleagues on our campus. We do feel like we're close colleagues. Some of that started with student complaints. There were concerns from particularly our men who have sex with men and gay-identified young men of their access to STD treatments and the kinds of educational conversations they were being given by well-meaning physicians. So Hookup apps are very popular, as they are nationwide, but out here in LA, I do believe actually Grindr was developed by a USC alum, as well as Scruff. I might be wrong on that. It might be Tinder and Scruff. But the apps are just incredibly common, meaning that our students are hooking up anonymously. They're hooking up inside of the campus community and outside of the campus community. And our physicians have been trying to discourage that behavior, while our students have very much seen that as a way to create community, find identity, create intimacy. In short, it's become a very important cultural tool, and they felt that that piece of their identity was being challenged in the attempt to give medical advice. In support of our physicians and their efforts, one of the physicians very much lived through the AIDS crisis and watched many close friends pass away, and so has had a real passion about trying to change behaviors in this current generation, and there's just been an intergenerational conversation gap. So, but because of that, they've asked us to come in consistently to do different kinds of cultural competency trainings. We work closely with our trans health staff and the front desk staff on pronouns and use of proper names in accordance with gender identity with students. So we're regularly over there for meetings and trainings. And our newest campaign is this STD awareness card that we're pretty excited about. It went through many, many student focus groups, a number of staff focus groups. I think this draft is draft 6 of 7, so there's even a newer draft after this one. And we're just trying to tweak it so that it isn't alienating in any capacity. So being very sensitive to the language that's used, everything from making sure that condom usage isn't the #1 thing that's said, here's how you prevent HIV, so that queer women aren't immediately alienated, to making sure that we don't reference binary gender so that our trans students don't feel alienated out of the gate, to making sure that a student doesn't have to identify a sexual identity in order to get competent care around sexual behavior. That was a big goal that we had as well. And for students to feel like their identities are being respected up front before we start asking them questions about sexual behavior. So if you'll see on there, it starts by asking pronouns and gender identity, but no student names are asked and no ID numbers are asked, in the hopes that that will reduce stigma. And then you can see as it goes down from there, there's a set of questions. We're particularly excited about the chart that we have. And so rather than asking what sex are your partners, it's more, here are your body parts, where are they touching other people's body parts? So the design feature in that was to keep students from feeling like they have to disclose sexual identity, to feel like they can demonstrate a complexity of behavior without having to be immediately pigeonholed by a physician into a particular demographic. Our consistent hope is kind of twofold with this, that not only will this help our students to feel less stigmatized in seeking out STD care, including HIV prevention care, but that also it'll help to train our physicians who, like both groups of presenters before have mentioned, sometimes lack that LGBT cultural competency in their training, that it'll help them to see the much broader complexity of sexual activity, behavior, and orientations on our campus. I believe a recent poll of students, our freshmen, we took a health poll, and about 26% of students said they were not fully heterosexual. So really wanting to get our clinicians to stop thinking about our LGBT community or queer community as being a small percentage, that it's much more broadly across campus. And then also to get them thinking more competently about how gender and gender identity play a role in healthcare. A recent report out of the Williams Institute at UCLA says that 4.5% of California youth are identifying as transgender, gender nonconforming, or non-binary, which is more than twice the rate of any other state in the country. I like to think that's because California is awesome, but that does mean that we have upwards of 3,000 students that could be in that category, especially as years roll forward. So just getting both sides of the divide talking in a healthier, more holistic way. The other thing that our center does specifically is we try to increase access to HIV care and prevention and testing. So here's one of our flyers from our campaign on Valentine's Day. We took our campus's wellness dog around campus all over with chocolates, and the dog's name is Bo, and Bo gave out chocolate Valentines to students, and we told them about this van that we had on campus that could do free rapid HIV testing. We have a community partner, APAIT, that we work with regularly. They serve primarily QTPOC people in sort of central LA, downtown LA, south central LA. So that's been a great resource for us. The other thing that we do is there are these great little plush HIV viruses and other STD viruses that we keep around the center to help raise awareness and decrease stigma around talking about sexually transmitted diseases and infections. They're literally the key chain to our storage space. So it gets our students talking. And in addition to that, we keep a flyer that's out that's very sensitive to the gender binary and queer sexuality, talking about how much testing is needed, where to get tested, what some warning signs are that you need to get tested, and that kind of thing. All right, and with that, I am going to pass back the participation. The participant panelists presented
yes,
to the presenters, the host today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Excellent,
Thank
Kelby.
you.
Thank you so much. And I so appreciated you connecting your endeavors with what Leslie and Shireen and company presented in their early remarks. We're getting close to questions and comments, but I did want to show everybody three resources, three kind of assessment tools. If you, the first one is a screenshot of the Campus Pride Index, and this is a national listing of LGBTQ-friendly colleges and universities put together by Campus Pride, which is a national nonprofit organization for student leaders and campus groups working to create safer, more LGBTQ-friendly learning environments on college and university campuses. There are ratings of LGBTQ inclusiveness, but you can see how, an institution ranks. And there also is a way that you can search by institution type, including HBCU, Hispanic or Asian American serving, tribal college or university, single sex, et cetera. So then the next is a screenshot of one page in a document entitled Recommendations for Supporting Trans and Queer Students of Color. And it was put together by the Consortium of Higher Education LGBT Resource Professionals, and it presents what the document calls guiding suggestions for campus partners to use when supporting trans and queer students of color. It's written for student affairs professionals and also presents barriers to collaboration, ways to think about them. The last resource, which is also a screenshot, is from Affordable Colleges Online, and it contains resources for creating LGBTQ inclusive curricula, safe spaces, et cetera. So what's on everybody's minds? I think we should go to questions and comments next. And I'm going to try my hardest for the panelists to sort of direct the questions to all of you, but certainly jump in if you have something you want to say. So is there something that Shireen, Patrick, Lisa, plus Kelby can talk about? How have you engaged faculty in helping to support LGBTQ students of color beyond trainings? I know that Campaign 930 talked about the safe spaces trainings.
Well, how we get our staff and faculty to participate or to support us, we actually have the safe space and the LGBT cultural competency training specific for them. So we will hire community-based organizations or organizations like Campus Pride that will come out, and we will have like 2-day trainings specific for departments, divisions, the administrators. Please tell me again. Oh, what's that? So we target them specifically to make sure that that they understand the needs of the population, and then we do go through a series of scenarios in which things that they may encounter if they consider themselves or want to identify themselves as safe space, things that they can expect to encounter if they identify themselves as a safe space with students that may want to come to them and talk to them and ask them for resources. So we do trainings that prepare them for supporting the culture.
Thank you. Is there anything that you want to add, Kelby or Leslie?
Each year we invite our LGBTQ faculty to come speak at an off-site conference that we do as an intensive weekend training for our student leaders or students who want to learn more about the history of the LGBT movement. And so that's one way that we both build relationships with faculty and then connect the faculty directly to our students in the hopes that that will help to bridge mentorships, to create better community-wide conversation. But in terms of being able to effectively utilize our faculty, really that has been the one event that's been effective. If we invite them to different events and whatnot, we don't usually have good turnout, but to invite them to come speak to our students, to give a presentation on their research, and then we have at every meal a thing called Wisdom from Your Elders, where we ask our visiting guests to talk about their own experience. And we're mindful in that of making sure that we have a diversity of representation amongst the faculty we invite.
Great stuff. Thank you. Leslie, I'm wondering, there's a question about recommendations for getting university and college administration buy-in to fully supporting LGBTQ students of color.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question, and that was something that we really had to address last year in terms of our work here at the HRC because of our because all of our contacts essentially are with coordinators and directors of student lives, and so they aren't any, I like to call them rank and file, and so which means is that many of them would have to go through several layers of bureaucracy and people before they're able to get a decision made. With that, we decided this year to kind of buy their attention, and I know this isn't something that everybody can do, and I can go into another suggestion, but what we're doing is in July, we are bringing 25 HBCU presidents and administrators to DC to give them a full briefing on LGBTQ health, equity, and also inclusion and diversity. And this way we will make an audience with those decision makers to do that. The other suggestion that I have is if this work does not rise to the level of importance that we would like it to for campus-based administrators, I like to always use the business case. Unfortunately, we would want to appeal to our administrators' hearts around why this is important. But sometimes, just given the nature of the work and the job and the priorities for our campus-based administrators, what we want just doesn't really rise to the occasion. So we like to use a business case, meaning that it is good business for the university to invest in diversity and inclusion initiatives, especially centered around LGBTQ students. This helps for your recruitment. This helps for retaining students. It helps for retaining and attracting good faculty. And it also helps when you are looking to promote for more funding around corporations and organizations and foundations that really support diversity and inclusion in the work that we're doing. They like to invest and fund universities who support the same things that they support. So that is some of the ways that you can really, truly get the attention of the administrator just by adding in that, hey, look, this looks good for recruitment, this looks good to retain faculty, and so that is how we've been able to gain a lot of the attention of administrators, especially using their business case.
Thank you for giving us 2 suggestions. I mean, it's amazing that Human Rights Campaign is in a position of convening 25 college university presidents, and we wish you well at that meeting in July.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell everybody that the slides will be available at the end of this presentation, and that we will also be putting into the chat box an evaluation as well that will come up on your screen. But there are other questions, and please don't stop typing in things that are crossing your mind. We are a combination of people from across the country listening to this webinar, so I'm imagining other people would like to hear what people are, university workers, HIV administrators, whoever's on this call, what you're putting into practice to support LGBTQ students of color. So is there a way that the 3 of you, the 5 of you, could talk to the question about how you have sort of worked to have links with community-based organizations? And you mentioned in your remarks, Leslie, that many HBCUs need to have those links with community-based organizations in order to provide basic HIV prevention and treatment services.
Yes, absolutely. So, HBCUs operate at a deficit in so many different capacities, most notably in funding. And so we get really creative with having our champagne taste on a beer budget. And so we have to share the burden of some of our support services that we want to provide for the students by partnering with community-based organizations. So this is a good thing for a few reasons. One, community-based organizations receive grants from foundations and federal government to achieve X amount of indicators, objectives, or what have you. So some of them might need to test X amount of students, some of them might need to test or treat X amount of whatever. And so by partnering with a university, it's a win-win because you are assisting you are assisting those community-based organizations with meeting their objectives, and you're also supporting your students by providing them with that necessary service. HBCUs just really do not have the facilities and the personnel to be able to engage with PrEP a whole lot of times, or to take the blood work and to do all those necessary testing. So you have to make that bridge somewhere in the community to be able to refer your students to those agencies so that they can receive those services.
Thank you. Certainly other presenters, if you have anything to add in regards to forming links with community-based organizations, please chime in.
I honestly feel we have quite a bit of privilege at USC insofar as our local organizations often do the legwork to partner up with us. So because we're the largest employer in Los Angeles, because we are one of the 2 largest universities, because we have a certain cachet to the name, that they really do reach out, and then it's a process of bringing them to campus and spending quality time thinking, how can we partner, how can we advertise your services to our students and the general public in the area that we welcome into our building during business hours. So we've been really lucky in that way. It's sort of we stay put and they come to us, and then we just get excited about where we can go from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we hear more from you, Kelby, or maybe from Shireen, Patrick, and Lisa, but about establishing partnerships between LGBT resource centers and student health? I mean, it was very interesting to see the questionnaire that you're putting into place, but if there are any other tips, it certainly was the statistics at the beginning that I rattled through. I mean, all students are not taking advantage of student health, and certainly, as we've discussed, LGBTQ students of color. I mean, it seems like it would be a win-win if somehow the resource centers could be wired in with the student health a little bit more effectively on college and university campuses.
This is Shireen. I would say that right now we're in a work in progress, so we're actually still learning how we can make those connections. But we have found how we have been able to find our community-based organizations is really through referrals, working very closely with us, helping us, the Black Justice National Coalition. They have provided an enormous amount of other community-based organizations that may be interested in working with us, and so we just are referred to, or people refer them to us, and so that is usually how we are able to get more collaborations when we're doing our events and when we're doing testing promotions.
Thank you. Did
we really. This is Kelby. We really encourage our students to file complaints if there are complaints with our health center, meaning that we'll hear, like a student will come into the center, they'll talk about a bad experience at the health center. Many other students are around, and then the health center starts to get a bad reputation. So one of the things we do is we try to keep a transparent conversation about empowering people to get the health care that they need, and that using the campus environment to communicate that. It's definitely true that once a number of students, file these complaints, then definitely the health center will come back and say, we want to improve, help us improve. So we have found that that's a good way to get students to use their voice and to get them to agree to use the health center again. We also encourage them to tell us if they ever have a problem. We encourage our students to talk transparently with each other when there are concerns, and then to strategize, right? So, so how can we get better access to health care? How can we get better competent health care? How can we do that within student budgets? How can we do that within travel limitations? So, and then that usually ends up bringing us back to, we need to advocate with our student health center to make them better. So really involving students in that dialogue about seeking out good medical care, and hoping that that will help transcend when they leave the university, that they'll continue to be able to advocate for their health care.
Yeah, that's a very empowering note to draw this webinar to a close. I'm aware that we don't have any more questions or comments. I do want to give Leslie, Shireen, Patrick, and Lisa the opportunity to say anything else. And I also want to remind you that we've just chatted the Survey Monkey for an evaluation, and that our website does have many resources. We're working on adding resources related to this very topic of today. Please keep in mind that we also are ready to meet your technical assistance needs, so just email us at whatworksinYouthHIV@jsi.com if you have a TA request. Any panelists, any final thoughts or calls to action you'd like to put out to our audience?
Well, I'll start. Just first, thank you to the JSI team for the invitation to be a panelist on this webinar. I think the information that was presented was great, and I hope it helped someone on the webinar. As it just relates to call to action, I just want to encourage folks to continue to do the work, continue to join trainings and webinars such as this, because it is you who will make the difference on your particular campus or organization or community, so that we can really support all youth, but especially LGBTQ youth of color. Thank you again.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, all presenters. And you've given us a lot to think about. This has been an outstanding webinar, and take good care. Webinar is now ending. Bye.